How does death in video games shape our understanding of right and wrong? In the shadowy depths of our favorite games, death lingers as a silent guide and strong narrative tool, confronting us with our own morality. We're forced into ethical decisions that poke at our humanity, revealing deeper truths about our values and decision-making. Today, I would like to share with you my exploration into this ambitious question. To approach this, I've played through a few titles: Bioshock, This War of Mine, and Inside. These games depict selfish morals, ambiguous decisions, and vulnerability, each giving us crumbs to learn the lessons hidden within video game deaths. Through the fading heartbeats of our beloved characters and games, I believe we can reflect on and influence our moral compass, answering our questions, but also perhaps revealing more about ourselves than we might expect. To start off, I was quite young when I first explored the dark city of Rapture in Bioshock. Reading lots of dystopian fiction as a kid, utopias dissolving into dystopian nightmares tickled my imagination. Possibly one of the first games I ever played, why Bioshock with its grim underwater city captivates me to this day is quite clear. I was surprised that what made its story resonate with death and morals was beyond mere gameplay and set dressing, but rather the questions it asks, not the answers it provides. So, what questions does it ask of us? Starting the game, we're introduced to the dark corridors and ruined halls of Rapture. The game unfolds a narrative of a society ruined by experimentation in capitalism, where personal freedoms know no bounds. As we move through the submerged streets of the game, looking out portholes and glass panels into the ocean shows us the remnants of a dark side of these freedoms: addiction, madness, and a profound disconnect from the rest of humanity. The game cleverly uses its environment as a narrative force, teaching us the history and fallacies of Rapture through scattered diaries, propaganda posters, and the grandiose architecture of the city itself. For the most part, the moral heart of Bioshock lies in the Little Sisters, genetically altered young girls who harvest a valuable resource known as Adam from the dead. Protected by their fearsome guardians, the Big Daddies, they embody innocence corrupted by Rapture's ideologies. These young girls, transformed into bio-industrial harvesters, are the scientists' most clear attempt at the commodification of life, using Adam to extend and advance human longevity. We're faced with a difficult choice: to save the Little Sisters, restoring our humanity but receiving less Adam, or to harvest them for a greater yield at the cost of their lives. If we choose humanity, the game throws everything at us to make us feel vulnerable, making levels more difficult, and as time goes on, if we break down and harvest a Little Sister, all of our kindness is for nothing. This decision forces us to confront our values and the concept of sacrifice versus selfishness, right versus wrong. Through its gameplay and narrative, Bioshock calls into question the human cost of unbridled ambition to try and solve life and death. In all honesty, the Little Sisters' dilemma is a rather small part of Rapture's broader ethical failures, but by placing the moral decision directly in the hands of the player, Bioshock transcends traditional storytelling. It compels us to reflect on the consequences of our actions, both in-game and symbolically in real life. What does it mean to act ethically in a world that rewards selfishness? Bioshock doesn't provide easy answers, but instead reflects the complexities of ethical decision-making, pointing us down a promising path. The game guides us to a more specific part of death versus morals, asking the question of whether survival and morality should be possible at the same time. Thankfully, part of this answer can be found right now. This War of Mine confronts us with a grim reality of war from the perspective of civilians caught in the crossfire. What makes this game a compelling addition to our exploration of morality in games? It should answer our previous question about whether we need to choose, throwing us into the everyday struggle for survival where we weigh against helping innocent civilians or ourselves, right or wrong. But it might also be a good thing to choose. Hear me out. Set against the backdrop of a besieged city, This War of Mine is a departure from typical war games. Here, there are no soldiers or grand battles. Instead, we navigate the lives of ordinary civilians trying to survive in the ruins of their world. The game's mechanics revolve around making difficult decisions to secure food, medicine, and shelter, set up by the necessity to survive through a relentless and indifferent war. The moral complexities of This War of Mine are profound and personal. We're faced with scenarios where the lines between right and wrong blur into obscurity, stealing medicine to save a friend while knowing it might doom another, deciding whether to risk lives for more materials, or even determining how to deal with strangers in need amidst scarcity of resources. Each decision impacts not just the survival of the characters, but their mental and emotional well-beings, reflecting the heavy burden of survival in wartime. This gameplay is not for the faint of heart. It's a raw, unfiltered depiction of the human condition where resources are scarce, challenging us to face the uncomfortable truths about sacrifice, survival, and the shades of gray somewhere in between. Without the very looming threat of death and vulnerability, these morals kind of just drop away. If there was unlimited luck the war could provide us, our choices would always sway to help as many people as possible. For this reason, this War of Mine mirrors real-world moral questions faced by those living in conflict zones. It challenges us to consider the consequences of our actions in a world where choices are ambiguous. This War of Mine, through its intimate portrayal of civilian life during war, broadens our exploration of death and vulnerability in games. It offers a visceral lens through which we realize that only in the face of hard decisions do we really know how we would react. Here, we find survival and morality are generally not possible at the same time, and no amount of speculation or self-deception can tell us that we would make the quote-unquote right choice. With these choices forced upon us, actually making them clears our conscience of this burden of uncertainty. The urge to save everyone, even when we can't, makes us feel more human, developing a clearer view of our moral compasses. However, finding that we must choose, even if it makes us feel more human, what is the right choice? There are a lot of ways to approach this, and this kind of encapsulates the entire topic of ethics, which is where Inside comes in. Inside stands in stark contrast to Bioshock and this War of Mine, being a rather silent and subtle game. We're not told anything, given any dialogue, or even given words to read, so then how can it speak volumes about morality and death? Inside doesn't indicate if the protagonist is good, or even describe what true right choices are, but let me show you why its ambiguity is its strength. This game places us in a monochromatic oppressive world where the young protagonist must navigate through mazes of Leviathan landscapes and sinister factories. Here, moral decisions aren't presented through dialogue or explicit choices, but are instead shown through gameplay as well as its visual atmospheric storytelling. This narrative approach compels us to engage with the game's themes a bit more personally, interpreting and reinterpreting its silent messages against a backdrop of visual symbolism. Inside's treatment of death is special, and very important to its narrative. Death is not a consequence punished by a loss of much progress or items, it's simply a teaching tool, emphasizing the vulnerability and the preciousness of life. Each encounter with death serves as a lesson in perseverance, giving nods to just how weak the character is, and to keep moving. Why does survival matter in a world that seems so intended to extinguish it? Inside uses its character's vulnerability to make us question not just how to survive, but why survival matters in the context of this oppressive and controlling environment. By distilling morality into its most essential, unspoken form, Inside challenges players to navigate its ambiguities without guidance. The lack of clear moral directives forces players to confront our ethics, making choices that reflect our interpretation of right and wrong. This silent exploration of morality comes to a grand but rather calm ending, a monster basking in the sunlight of freedom. This ending does not give away the answers we've been looking for, rather suggesting peace and resolution through personal decision-making. Inside thus becomes a powerful medium for introspection, underlying that video game deaths can profoundly influence our understanding of our own morality. In the absence of explicit guidance, we're left to define the ethics of our actions. Ultimately, finding the right decision is to make one for ourselves. To put what this means into context, let's look back at what we found. Analyzing the worlds of Bioshock, this War of Mine, and Inside, they all touch upon a few different perspectives, offering unique takes on death, vulnerability, and ethical decision-making. How deeply does death in games influence our real-world choices? The impact on players diverges significantly across these experiences. Bioshock might leave us questioning the real value of altruism in a self-serving world. This War of Mine might evoke a sense of helplessness and guilt over the unavoidable compromises in a war-torn world, and Inside's ambiguity forces us into a different kind of introspection, where the lack of clear moral guidelines reflects the complexities of real-world ethics. Each game, in its own way, highlights the difficulty of making right choices under pressure. It's dangerous for us to try and derive the meaning of life from these games, but the overarching theme across them is the struggle between survival, morality, and meaning, a theme that manifests uniquely in each setting, but ties together beautifully. Bioshock, this War of Mine, and Inside explicitly force us to confront death through gameplay mechanics. All three share a common thread. They challenge our moral compass in the face of death, pushing us to reconsider what is right in situations where conventional ethics are appended by necessity or environment. In the end, let's answer our question: how does death in games mold our understanding of right and wrong? These games demonstrate that while survival and morality often clash, the essence of our humanity is most apparent when forced to make hard decisions. The urge to save everyone, ourselves included, despite knowing it's impossible, develops our moral compass, revealing our values and priorities. Ultimately, playing games like Bioshock, This War of Mine, and Inside teach us that when faced with death or vulnerability, peace and self-understanding come from not making the universally right choice, but from navigating these moral mazes as best as possible, in a way that feels true to ourselves. As I close up this video on morality and mortality in video games, I want to thank you so much for watching. This topic has been a delight to write, and after hearing all of your kind comments and massive support from the last video, I'm more motivated than ever to continue engaging in this style of content. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, so feel free to ask questions, leave your ideas, or just say hey. For those who saw the last video, thank you so much for the support. It made my week, my month, and my year. If you've enjoyed it, please do like and subscribe. It would mean the world to me, and it helps me work towards making these videos long term. Share this video with friends and family who would find these types of videos interesting, and we can create a more thoughtful part of YouTube. I create most of these videos live, so feel free to check me out on Twitch at twitch.tv/Pingyer. I'll be making more of these videos soon, so stay posted. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.